and welcome to another episode of the Bella Grayce podcast, where we are helping high achievers break free from mindsets, behaviors, and addictions that are holding them back from living their best life. And today we are doing that by talking to my new friend, Nathan Littleton. He is a highly regarded motivational speaker, coach, and podcast host, dedicated to helping people achieve stability and success in their lives. With nearly a decade of experience as an associate pastor and a personal journey that fuels his passion, he equips people with the tools to navigate life's challenges. Known for his relatable and practical speaking style, Nathan inspires individuals to confidently take action and build a strong foundation for a meaningful future. Welcome to the show. I am so excited to have you here. I love having guys on because a lot of people don't know this about me, but I tend to work with a lot of men. And if you look at my social media, you may not realize that because it's girly. It's a lot of neutrals. I wear very bright colors against the neutral backgrounds, but most of my clients are men.
Wow.
And I think it's
And I'm
because
over here in black.
yeah. And I think it's because I have 5 brothers. And so I think I just naturally attract and gravitate towards men with friendships and, just acquaintances, all that. So I know that a lot of guys listen to my podcast. So I love having a male perspective on the show.
Yeah.
So welcome to the show. I would like for you to share your story, share a little bit about yourself.
I'd love to.
I know you're a pro at this, so let's dive in. Tell us about you.
All right. I don't know about a pro, but we'll give it our best shot. How about that?
There we go.
Yeah. But before we get started, how was it growing up with 5 brothers?
Oh, yeah. So I constantly had 2 in the house. The other 3 were in and out, but I was like, and I'm the baby. To make matters worse, I'm the youngest of all the kids. So it's like I have, and my dad passed away when I was young. I was 8 when my dad passed away. So I've pretty much had like 5 dads my entire life.
Yep.
Yeah.
Wow, that's crazy.
So.
It reminds me of my grandma. They're that older generation, grew up on the farm. So they had, I think there was 9 of them, and she was the only girl. And so she has a lot of stories to tell. I pass those stories down to my kids now. They're like, tell me some stories about Mama's brothers, it's something else. But
it is.
Anyway, that's crazy.
Well, we have that in common because my mom is one of 10 and my dad is one of 10. And
really?
Yes. And my dad's family, they were farmers and they had a farm growing up when I was a kid. And then my mom's family, they were migrant workers. So they were farm workers. So I've grown up around people who till the earth in one way or another my entire life. I tell people all the time, I'm like, I didn't realize that the grocery store had vegetables because we ate the vegetables that came from my grandma's house or that she had pickled or jarred.
Yep, we grew up the same way. We did. Wow, that's my first money I ever made was on the farm picking produce for the farmers market. Like that's the way we grew up. But that kind of leads into my story because we grew up we worked hard for everything we had, and I remember I was about 16 years old and my dad bought me a pickup truck, my first truck, and it was a totaled out vehicle. We bought it from a salvage auction, and so the thing was just demolished. And I think he was trying to get me push me into a career choice. He knew I like tinkering with trucks, we both from Texas, how Texas boys are with their trucks, right? So I fixed this truck up, man. I went to the wreck yard, got parts. I just worked and worked on it. I took my wife on our first official date in that old Chevy pickup truck. Yeah. And so after that, I ended up selling it, bought another totaled out one, sold it back and forth. And I ended up with a used car dealer license. I was 17 and I was like, man, I'm in business, But I had this dream that one day I'm going to be a real businessman. And so I wanted a real body shop. So at 19, I opened up this little body shop in a small town here, and my wife was my secretary, and I was doing all the work. And I tell you, the thing is, I realized that it takes a lot more than hard work and a dream to run a business. I guess you figure that out, right? Like I knew how to work hard, but I didn't know how to make smart decisions, especially financial decisions. And I just, hey, I want to be a big businessman. I want to drive a jacked up diesel truck because that's what all the businessmen drive over here. And so I had this dream, and there I was, man. I was working hard, and I remember the first time the Snap-on truck showed up. Now, the Snap-on truck, I don't know if you know what that is, but it's like a Bass Pro Shop, for a fisherman. Like that's what it is for a mechanic. And so when they showed up, I walked in there and I was like looking at all these tools, and this guy's like, "Man, you need that $80 hammer, don't you?" I'm like, I probably do. Like, so I walked out of there and I was, several $100s in the hole. But you see, they sold you these tools on credit, no interest, and they just come by and get a little bit of your check every week. So I was like, yeah, I can do this. Well, that led, I guess when the guy left, he was like, look, this young dude doesn't know what he's doing. He loves to spend money. And so he sent everybody in town by there, I guess. I don't know. But it was just a little bit later, the semi Snap-on truck showed up. Now that one, I don't see it around very often, but it has all the high dollar tools in it. And they're all like, you can go in there and use them. They're set up as a demo. So I'm in there and I'm like welding on this new welder. And it's like, man, I kind of need this welder. And the guy, he's a good salesman. He's standing over me and he's like, um, you need this thing? I'm like, man, I kind of do. And I asked him, I said, does it weld aluminum? I was like, all these, new vehicles are aluminum now. He's like, yeah, dude, it does. I can add this in there and it'll weld aluminum. And, in my lack of wisdom, I was thinking, dude, if I had this welder, I would get so much more work. He has $15,000. It's like 28% interest, but hey, it's going to pay for itself. I turned around and I seen another machine there, and it was really the exact same thing. So $30,000 later at almost 30% interest, I walk off this truck like I am a real businessman now. Uh, yeah, it's funny thinking back on that, but um, I didn't actually stop there because it wasn't very long, and this dude walked in and he was selling signs. And he's like, "Man, you need a really nice LED sign out front of your shop." He's like, "Man," he's like, "this thing's gonna work for you at night. Like people's gonna drive by and see this cool sign, they're just gonna pull right in." And I'm thinking, he's right. Like $9,000. I mean, I can do this. So I remember my wife there's my little office had 2 rooms in it. She was in the back room. So I walked in there. I was like, "What do you think about this, babe? You think I should get this sign?" And she's in there crying. She's like, "No, we did not need this sign. I do not trust this guy." Yeah. And I'm like, "I'm the businessman. You don't know what you're talking about." So I went in there and, he filled out the contracts and I'm like, "Yeah, I'll take this sign." So we designed it, and I got this little catchy logo up there. My company, I named it Supreme Auto Collision. So my sign said, "Been creamed, call Supreme." Like who wouldn't stop? And so it was a few days later, and I'm looking at the contract, and it was supposed to be like $250 a month for 36 months, and it said 60 months. I'm like, that don't add up. So I did the math, and it was like 15,000. So I call the guy and he doesn't answer. Call him again, he doesn't answer. I call the company, they answer. I'm like, "Hey, I need to talk to this Joe dude, whatever his name was." And they're like, "Oh, we can't get a hold of him." I'm like, "Okay." And they're like, "You can call our finance company." So I did, and I mean, it was a legit finance company. They're like, "Look, you paid 15,000. It's just what you owe." And so I got scammed, and I don't know if I was more upset about that or the fact that my wife was right and I wasn't the smart businessman I thought I was. Oh, it was one thing after another for me. And I hired guys that just employees I couldn't afford. I paid them more money than they worth. I started maxing out my credit cards. I had lines of credit at the bank. I got a mortgage on the house. And so you get where this story's going, right? Like it's
Yes.
just one thing on top of another on another. And on a serious note, just the stress and the pressure, the anxiety, and we were going through a lot of stuff in our church with our faith, and there was just a lot of questions we had. And so everything at once just really it just started pushing on us. And it was one of those times. And I remember I got to the place where I couldn't hardly afford groceries. I was not making enough money every week to pay the bills, and so I was just getting further and further in the hole. And I looked at my bank account in the red so many times on my phone. It was like, even to this day, when I look at it and there's actually money in there, it's kind of a surprise. Like, it was such a tough time. But the thing was, I remember the day that I walked in there and I had a couple guys working for me, and I told them, I said, look, guys, I'm broke. I'm out of money. I don't have no work coming in, and this is your last day. And I'm shutting the business down. And it's just that day, it was the day my dream died. And just something inside of me it just disappeared. Like, it was a dream I'd held on for years and years. Since I was 16, I'd been working at this. And so my whole entire life was wrapped up in it. And growing up the way I grew up, like, my dad was a business owner. And so it was like, that's what success meant to us, right? Like, do something, work with your hands, work hard, make a living, provide for your family. That's what a man was for us. And so when it all fell apart, I had no other job experience. I had no resume, right? But a failed business. And so, like, we had two babies at home. It just, my confidence was gone. My self-worth, I felt like a failure. And I had tried so hard to make it work. It's like, I had so many different dreams, so many different ideas, so many things to try to make it happen. And right before it all fell apart, I remember driving up to a red light, and I was in my truck, and I mean, I'm stressed out. Like, I can't sleep at night. It's the anxiety attacks. I mean, it's like I get up and go to work, I come home and go to bed. Like, it's everything in my life was just trying to make it work. And I remember pulling up to this red light in my truck, and I'm thinking to myself, like, this is not good. This is going down. And then I was like, you know what? A good captain rides his ship to the bottom. So I'm just going to ride this thing to the bottom. And that's what I did, and just when it all fell out, there I was. And just, it was a very low, low time in my life. And I know I joked around a lot about the story, but it really wasn't funny as we were going through it. And there was just a lot of pressure on our marriage. And obviously, I mean, you can imagine the way it was. I remember through that season, I just began to look deep in my heart, look deep in my life. I was like, how do I find answers to this? What do I do? Like, is there any way out of this situation? Like, I have no business, I have no job, I'm hundreds of thousands of dollars in consumer debt, unbelievable interest rates. Like, I mean, people don't finance things for 20-year-old, 21-year-old at, cheap. Like I was in a big, big mess. Plus the mindsets and the identity that I had at that time. And I remember it's like, man, what do I do? How do I get out of this? How do I overcome this? And just one day, I just remember I was out walking. I just got my pickup truck, drove off, found an old country road somewhere with no traffic. I was just walking out there, just back and forth, talking to myself, talking to God, just trying to figure it out. And, that day, that season, I guess, just something inside of me, just a flame, a little flicker, something inside. What that was it was just hope, just a small little bit of hope that maybe this wasn't the end for me. Maybe somehow I could get out of this debt. Maybe somehow I could rebuild my marriage. Maybe somehow I could really find God in a real way. And I left that place thinking, maybe there's more. Maybe I can. I don't know how. I don't have the answers right now, but just some little something inside of me, that little flame began to build that says, there might be more out there for me. And that's really the moment that everything began to shift in my life.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's an incredible thing. I feel like so many people relate to it, and maybe it's not a career thing, maybe it is, but we go through seasons in our life, we go through storms, we go through situations and problems come our way, whether it's health, whether it's our relationships. Yeah, a lot of times it's our finances, our bank accounts trying to tell us what we're worth, right? And it's like, what do we do in those moments? What do we do in those times? You've got to get a hold of that little bit of hope that says, there might be a way out of this. can I change? Can I overcome? And so that's really the one message, I push out to people is, look, change can happen. Like, change is available. Like, you've got to realize, look, I can overcome this. I can be more than this.
Yeah.
And it just, yeah, go ahead.
No, I was going to say you're right. I think there is a epidemic of hopelessness going on right now. A lot of people are struggling with politics and the state of our economy and their own personal struggles, and it's all compounding. And I think that there are a lot of men specifically, and maybe because I work with a lot of men, but I feel like there are a lot of men who are like you when you were sitting at that red light, like wondering, is this the way it ends? Is this,
Yeah.
and they don't necessarily have the tools, because you mentioned how in our society, men are expected to be the providers. They're expected
Mhm.
to take care of their families. You pull up your bootstraps, you get it done.
Right.
And when you have an issue like a financial issue, a job issue, a relationship issue, and then you add on the state of our economy and the politics and just the crazy, right? There's just a lot of stuff going on right now. It
Yeah.
can
Yeah.
begin to feel very hopeless, especially
Hmm.
for men who are supposed to be the strong ones. They're supposed to be the providers. They're supposed to be the man, right? Like they're supposed to be the head of the house, the all the things, all the titles that we have put on men over the years. And so I think what you're sharing is super super powerful for men, especially because we are dealing with so much hopelessness in our world right now.
Right. Yeah. And, I'll go a little further in my story, but you can give your comments on this. But here's what I found that it really built in my life was a deep, deep internal belief that I was somehow not enough. Like, I didn't have what it took. I wasn't smart enough. I wasn't skilled enough. I just wasn't good enough to make it happen. And, all the people that I've talked to in my, years of coaching and, and just through that process, I was a youth pastor for a long time. And like that's just a common identity that I found among, people, just a deep belief that somehow I'm just not enough. And, have you seen that in your life for, different people you've coached?
Yeah. Yeah, it is. And I struggled with it for a very long time too. Is I The driving force behind my decisions and my behaviors was a feeling, a deep-rooted belief that I was unworthy, that I
Mhm.
didn't belong, that I was unwanted and unlovable, and that led me to live by a fear of disappointing others, a fear of failure. It drove everything that I did. And I see that day in, day out with people. Is like they think that they have to hustle. They think that they have to be the best, the hardest working, the top dog. They have to be the
Yeah.
number one business person. They have to be the number one salesperson. But
Yeah.
and that's what's driving them to being burned out, exhausted, fatigued all the time, hopeless. And
Yeah. Yeah.
when we really get down to it, it's a deep rooted belief that they aren't enough or they aren't worthy of having what they have. And that's what's driving them to overachieve constantly.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's not fair. When would you say that mindset became rooted for you?
I mean, I think that I can trace it back, to childhood, honestly, because I grew up in a society, really a church background that you had to earn your way into God's favor. You had to earn your way. And so that was kind of a internal belief for me all along. It's like I always was trying to follow the rules. I was always trying to make people proud of me. And so I think I carried that with me. I didn't know that. But then, now I'm 19, 20, 21, and I'm in this business, and it's still like I'm seeking for that validation. And so when it all fell apart, and I'm telling you, I didn't like halfway try. Like I gave it everything I had. I'm working 18 hours a day. And when the cars are not coming in to fix, I come up with a new idea. I mean, I ended up with an adjuster's license, a used car dealer license, a used car resale license. Yeah, I mean, and a lot of other ideas I'm skipping over. Like I was always trying, and then it wouldn't work, and another car would come in, and I'd fix the car. It was just like every time I'd get further and further in the hole. But it was like I was always trying to feel like I can make this happen. I can make this work. So when it all fell apart, it's like all those things I'd always internally felt about myself, it proved they were true. Like I really wasn't enough because I tried as hard as I could and it didn't work. It was like at that point I'm dealing with what I felt like was facts, right? I know I'm not enough. I mean, that's what my bank account says. That's what my failed business says. That's what the people around me are looking at me like. At least was what I felt. So it just like I don't know. That's the way I felt it was. It's like it started in childhood, but then life confirmed it,
Mm-hmm.
and so there I was dealing with it.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that is true for so many of us. It is something. For me, it was my childhood too. It was my dad passed away, and then his family, well, his parents said they didn't want anything to do with us after his death. And so I immediately, because I
Wow.
lived with my dad and my brothers, and so
Yeah.
it was like all of a sudden my family didn't want me. I went from having
Hmm.
two sides of my family to just having my mom's side of the family. And it immediately made me feel unlovable and unwanted and unworthy of having them in my life.
Right.
I too was like, I don't deserve them. And so I can trace back all of the decisions that I made after that were based on me trying to feel lovable, trying to feel wanted, and trying to feel worthy. I can
Hmm.
see every single decision that
Right.
I made that was rooted in that. And I think
Yeah.
that,
Yeah.
but we go on autopilot and we just start living. And that's kind of
Hmm.
what you did. You just started living and you were like, I'm going to be a big businessman, right?
Yeah.
Because that's how you were going to prove that you were smart enough, good enough, successful enough that you could do it.
Yeah.
But it was never really our burden, yours or mine or anybody else listening to this. That's not really our burden to carry. Like we don't have to prove that we are good enough, fast enough, strong enough. Like we we can be simply because we we try, right? Like we didn't
Yeah.
let whatever it was take us out. But I think too often we get hung up on that and it just drives us until we break.
Yeah. Yeah. It does. I don't think and you mentioned this, I don't think we recognize it most of the time.
Mhm.
It's like there's something in our life that is governing us. Like it's like a lid. A good way to look at it is like a thermostat. We all have a thermostat in our houses. So like when let's say you're getting heated up, like in your life, or that, it's getting hot in your house, what the thermostat comes on, kicks on the AC system and cools it back down. And so it's like, that's what I found. Here I am, I'm a 70-degree person, but I want to be a 75, I want to be an 80, I want to be a 90. But it's like when I begin to heat up, something would happen that would cool me back down. I didn't know what it was. I didn't know why everything that I tried wouldn't work. I didn't know why it seemed like every time I almost got ahead, something happened, pulled me back down. It
Yeah.
was in my fitness, it was in my finances, it was in my relationships, it was in my faith. Like it just real life things, but it's like, what is it that's just keeping me cooled down? And it was that internal belief that I didn't deserve it, that I wasn't good enough for it. That's crazy, but it's really there. That's what it was for me. That was the biggest like eye opener in my life when I began to go through the process of building back my confidence and seeing myself the way that God wanted to see me.
Yeah, and you're a faith-filled person and so am I. And it I have a hard time articulating this part of stuff when I'm working with someone who isn't a faith-filled person. And I
Right.
don't judge, it's not our
Sure.
place to
Sure.
judge. But I have a hard time articulating it because, like you said, I had to start seeing myself the way that God sees me.
Right.
And that's kind of what I was going to say before, was like, you don't have to strive, you don't have to do, because you are already all of the things that God says that you are.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
but when I was growing up, I didn't grow up in a religious home, right? My dad was
Right.
religious. My dad planted those seeds. We grew up Catholic. My dad was the
Mhm.
one that he made sure that I knew who Jesus was. I didn't know that I could have a personal relationship with God, Jesus, the Holy Spirit. Like, I didn't know that
Right.
until high school, when my boyfriend introduced me to that.
Okay.
And then almost immediately after, my that same boyfriend started forcing me to have sex with him and was like getting me to do things I wasn't comfortable with. And I'm
Yeah.
thinking, this isn't what God wants me to do.
Right.
But this guy says he loves me, and I
Yeah.
am unlovable. So the fact that somebody loves me is enough to justify everything that's happening. But never, even 6 years ago, if you would have asked me why I got into that relationship, I would have
Mhm.
said because I grew up around people who were in abusive relationships. I would have said that I lacked
Right.
role
Mhm.
models to show me what a healthy relationship looked like. But no, now I have done the work, like you said, the hard work of digging
Yeah.
in and really identifying what mindsets are holding you back, because we are quick to blame the universe, the world. It's karma. It's
Yeah.
bad luck. It's poor decision making that causes us to fail. And I was like you, every time I'd get ahead with my finances, something would push me back down. And I'm like, I don't know what it is. I just have bad luck with money. My bank account gets hacked all the time. Whatever. Like,
Right.
I would blame it on all
Oh.
these
Yeah.
external things,
Yep.
but when I
Yep.
really did the work, I realized I was self-sabotaging. Like, even if it was like some stupid mistake of like putting my credit card on some website that I knew I shouldn't have done it. You know what I mean? Like,
Mhm.
if we can really do the work and dig in and really focus on who God says we are,
Right. Right.
then we can speak out against the mindsets that have kept us here.
Yep. Yep. That's exactly where you have to go with it because there's really no other answer. There's no other solution, in my opinion, because that's where I found myself. And so these were the three things that I teach that really that changed my life. And this has to become the foundation of your identity, your new identity, and your identity being the things you think about yourself, the way you see yourself. That's the way I define identity. But these three things: God loves me, God created me, and God has a purpose for my life. And here's the thing: the Bible says that God created me a masterpiece. A masterpiece is a perfect work of art. That means God did not create me a mistake. He didn't create me a failure. I'm not somehow flawed. Like, He created me a masterpiece. And because of that, I can understand, look, even though I may have made mistakes, I'm not a mistake. He didn't make me lacking in some way. The Bible says He has a purpose for my life. I just mentioned that. Well, that means He's gave me the things I needed to fulfill that purpose. So it's all goes together there. And here's the thing, I can say that, and I say that all the time, but until you actually believe that for yourself, it's just words. But here's the way I like to say it. These three truths: God loves me, God created me, and God has a purpose for my life. It's not like the law of gravity. That's what I mean. Let's say somebody come up and said, "Oh, I don't believe in that gravity stuff," right? It's just some scientific hoax, just mumbo jumbo. I don't believe it. And I'm like, "Okay, well, prove it to me." So they go jump off of, some skyscraper somewhere, right? What's going to happen? They're going to figure out gravity's real, aren't they? They're going to figure it out very quickly. So the fact is, gravity's real, even if you don't believe in it, even if you don't want to believe in it, even if you don't feel like it's real. even if your emotions tell you that it's not real. You get where I'm going, right? So these truths that God loves me, that God created me a masterpiece, that God has a purpose for my life, they're true even if you don't believe they're true, even if you don't want them to be true, if you don't feel like they're true. If everything in your life is telling you they're not true, they're still true. And so you've got to grab a hold of those things and say, look, just because my life, my world is telling me these things that I'm not enough, that I can't change, that it's hopeless, that my situation is just going to determine the rest of my life. Listen, God loves you. God created you. God has a purpose for your life. And you've got to grab a hold of those things because those things do not change.
Yeah. Oh, I feel like I went to church.
Yeah, I know. Sorry.
No, I needed it today. I needed it today. And I know there's people who need to hear that because
Yeah. Yeah.
I feel like a lot of times we talk about mindset, we talk about identity, but we don't actually like break it down. Like, what is your identity? And
Yeah.
I like how you defined it. I think you said it's the things you say about yourself and think about yourself.
Yes,
Is that what
it's
you? Yeah.
the easiest way to say it is your identity is how you see you,
Okay.
how you look at you. It's just what you think about yourself.
Yeah. Because,
Yeah.
and I think so many people lack an identity.
Yeah.
Because in my work, they come to me for, I want to drink less. I need better work life balance. I need, I
Hmm.
want to spend less time in the office and more time at home.
Right.
I'm exhausted all the time and I don't know why. I just don't feel good. I need to feel better. And so I start with the foundation of like, what do you want? And when
Yeah.
I ask people that, they don't know. They don't know
Hmm.
how to answer that because they don't have an identity outside of I am a director, I am a lawyer, I am a doctor, whatever, fill in the blank, like, or I'm a dad, or I'm a mom.
Yeah.
I take care of my sick parents. Like, they don't have an identity. And oftentimes I have to do that work with them of, okay, that's what you do, but who are you? How do you see yourself? And I think we all too often don't know. We
Yeah.
don't know. And our identity is rooted in the fact that we were created by God for a purpose and we are a masterpiece.
Yeah.
Like, if you can understand that, like, then it gets a little bit easier to say, okay, I was created by a God, by this God, because I have clients who are not believers, and
Sure.
it's completely foreign to them.
Yeah.
Some of them were never raised in a church, and they just don't know.
Right. Right.
Um, but so, like, you were created by this God who created you for a reason, and he created you exactly the way that you need to be so that you can fulfill this reason. And so then it becomes like, what is the reason I was created? And if
Yeah.
you dig in, and I tell people, I'm like, everything that you need is already inside of you. Every hope, every dream, every desire, it was planted there for a reason to
Hmm.
fulfill your calling and your purpose. And it is perfect just the way it is. Like, we don't need to change it. And so it becomes me asking my clients, like, what sets your soul on fire?
Yep.
When you don't know who you are, start by trying to figure out what brings you joy.
Yep. Yep.
What do you love doing? What would you do even if you weren't getting paid for it? And
Yep.
it's at least a little sliver of a foot in the door to start to
Absolutely.
figure out
Hmm.
what your identity is. Because then I think you can reverse engineer it and say, okay, this is who you're supposed to be. This is who you want to see yourself as, but this is how you're seeing yourself currently. Where is the disconnect? And
Yep.
maybe you can reverse engineer it that way to try to figure out what mindset is keeping you stuck.
Right. Right. Oh yeah. No, that's great. I like that. Yeah. Very good. A lot of times I like to say too, is to add on to that, is like, what upsets you? Like, what in the
Yes.
world do you see right now that you wish you could change?
Yes.
What in your family do you want to change? Like, it's just like a lot of times. that's the thing that is your call to change, you know? And so now that's really good. It's really good. Um,
Yeah.
well, let me go a little bit further here if you want me to. Let me give you
Yes,
just a little bit
please.
more of my story.
Yes. I know I've
So
derailed us a few times. I'm really good at that.
no, it's all good. It was great. I get so passionate about it all, but
Me too.
um, so after kind of through that season, I ended up getting a good job. Just a it was just one of the crazy things, and I was making enough money. I was paying the bills. I was buying groceries. I was keeping the lights on. I wasn't like getting ahead, but we were making it, and so it was just it relieved a lot of stress out of my life. But it was like through that season, I'm like digging for answers. I'm listening to, the Bella Grayce podcast. Well, not this one, but I'm listening to podcasts, I'm reading books, and I'm trying to figure things out. And I remember one day I was driving to work. I've got this podcast playing. I don't remember which one it was. I think it was Ed Milet, maybe. And so this guy, he comes on and he says this. He said, "No one's coming to save you. Your life is your responsibility." And I'm telling you, it was like a Mike Tyson punch to the chin for me because I was like, it's doesn't matter whose fault. I mean, because I was kind of in that mindset, like, man, if this customer hadn't did this, or this employee hadn't did this, or if the economy was better, if COVID hadn't have happened, da da da, and even blaming myself for a lot of things. It was a lot of my own fault, but it just came to that point. So it doesn't matter whose fault. It's my life. Like, it was like that moment of, it's my life. I've got to figure this out. And I began to look around. I'm like, okay, I've got to figure out what am I working with here? It's like life hands us a hand of cards. Like it deals us a hand of cards. There's good cards, there's bad cards. I had thousands or hundreds of $1,000s of debt. Like I've said, this bad identity, all of these things, my broken faith, all these questions. I had some good cards. Right? I had the ability to change. I had realized I had the ability to learn. I had a wife who wanted to see us succeed, wanted to see this work. Like I had some things in my life that was going for me. It came to a decision: do I play or do I fold? And folding says, whatever happens, happens. Folding says, hey, I can't do nothing about it. It's just, it's going to happen. It's going to happen. Life is just going to push me around. Hey, I've got too many bad cards. I can't play this hand. But playing says, I take ownership. I accept responsibility. I'm going to take action. I'm going to do something. And really, truthfully, it's the only option. And, hearing your story, and there's so many different stories out of there. A lot of times, life will deal us a lot of bad cards. Like, I've talked to them, you've talked to them, and it's tough. Some of the things people have to deal with, but the truth is still the same. You've got to play the cards. Like you've got to take ownership of your life and move forward. There's no other options. And we could both, talk on for hours on what to do next, but the truth is you're going to figure it out. Like when you get to the place and you say, I've got hope that I can change. I've got hope that this can turn around. And I know it's up to me. It's my life, my responsibility. Well, then at that point, you're set. Go forward, get the answers, right? Make the coaching call, talk to somebody, read a book, whatever it is, you can figure it out because you know you can. And that was the place that I found myself at. So that's really the message that I want to leave with people, that I share with people. Like, look, you can win. You can overcome. You were made to do something great with your life. Just go out there and do it. Go out there and build a foundation in your life, build a launch pad, and launch. Put the work in, the time in. It's up to you. You can
Yeah.
win.
Yeah. And in this day and age with the internet, the possibilities are endless. You can
Absolutely.
Google, what is my next right step? This is what I want to do. What's my next right step?
Yeah.
In the age of chat GPT, just put it in chat GPT and say, hey, this is what I want to do. What's the first step? Because you just have to take that first step forward.
Yep. Absolutely. That's all it is. I mean,
Yeah.
there's no excuse in today's time. Like, the answers are out there, and you get most of them for free. I mean, honestly, like, I mean, there's millions of podcasts that are free. And then books, like, it's 15 bucks, right? You can sit down with some spiritual giant, some billionaire, a businessman. I mean, you can listen to their story. You can get their advice for 15 bucks. Like, where's your excuse? You know, you don't have time to read? Okay, use Audible. Right. There's no excuse to not learning. And you have to. Learning is the key to success in life. Get out there
Yeah.
and learn it, figure it out.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think yeah, get out of the hole.
Yeah.
Get out of the hole. Whatever you got to do to get out of the hole. Because I know sometimes the hole feels really deep and like it's never going to end. But again, you can use the internet, use the free podcasts, listen to people who have overcome the things that you're going through right now. We've got to get out of the hole of hopelessness, grab onto some hope, and take the next step forward.
Absolutely. That's
Yeah,
it. Spot on.
I love it. I love it. Wow.
Yeah.
Well, what else? You got anything? I don't want to add too much more because that was perfect.
I think so too. It was good. It
Yeah.
was.
Wow.
I think
Well,
if just get a hold of that, just if people can grab a hold of that, it's up to me. And because it's up to me, that means that gives me the power. It gives me the power over my situation. Just take that home with you, and chew on it a while. Realize, hey, I can change. I can win.
yeah. Yeah. Wow. Well, where can everybody find you? Because I'm sure everybody's going to want to follow you, look for you, listen to you. So,
Yeah,
where are
so the
you?
easiest way is just my website. It's Nathan Littleton Firm, FIRM. You see firm in my background back here for you that are watching this. And I explain all what that means for me on my website. But from there, that's my social handle as well, Nathan Littleton Firm. But all the links are on my website. I've got some free trainings on my website that you can sign up for. I've got one on how to build your confidence, another one on how to control your thoughts. So it's a really, really good stuff on there. So I've got a podcast. Everything's on my website. You can find it all there. All the links are there. So that's where you can go check out everything that I've got.
I love it. Oh my goodness. Well, thank you for being on today. I'm serious. Goodness, we got so much packed in to,
We
I
did.
think,
It
like
was fun.
45 minutes, and it flew by. I feel like we talked for like 15 minutes. I'm like, what?
Yeah, it was great. It was. I talk fast sometimes when I get excited. So
Yeah. Well, and I was laughing because I grew up in Lubbock, in the Lubbock area. And so people always ask me where I'm from because they're like, well, you don't have a Texas accent. And I say, well, that's because my dad was really big on pronunciation and the
hmm
way we said things. And so I had an English teacher in high school that made sure that I articulated really well because she was my theater and my debate coach. And so she was really strict with me. And she used to tell me, if I can't hear you at the back of the auditorium, we're not leaving until I can. And so she would sit back there and take notes on what I said. And if I didn't articulate enough or project enough, we wouldn't leave
yeah.
until she could hear me and understand me. But
hmm
your accent reminds me so much of home and my guy
Yeah.
friends from over there. And I just kept thinking, I'm going to slip back into my Texas accent because as soon as I get around
Hey.
someone with one,
Yeah.
I do.
I just own it. I get it on
I love
every
it.
single podcast that I'm on. And the other day, my wife's from California, so we was in California and we was at a In and Out. But they have one of those in Dallas, I think. And
Yeah.
so the dude that was taking my order, he's like, "Man, where are you from?" And I'm like, "Texas." And he's like, "I knew you was from Texas, man." I'm like, "Oh yeah." He's like, "Yeah, I got family in Texas." I'm like, "Okay." But yeah,
Yeah.
I just own it. Like maybe it's enough that people hear me, they'll know who I am. Like that's the idea. Just own it.
I love it. I love it. And I sometimes I miss it and I will catch myself like going back into it when I'm around certain people and it's just
hmm
yeah, it comes out of me from time to time.
Yeah.
So it
Well,
made me
that's
feel
good.
at home. Thank you. All right. Well, everybody, thank you for listening. And until next week, be well, be kind, and may you find some joy this week. Bye.